The HP Touchpad versus the Apple iPad 2. So now that the iPad 2 is out and official, I thought we'd see how it stacks up to the next generation competitors like the HP Touchpad. So why don't we jump in and get started. As far as operating systems go, the iPad is running iOS 4.3, whereas the touchpad is running WebOS 3.0. And WebOS is the operating system they got that runs on the Palm Pre, and is what they acquired when they purchased Palm last year. So it's a pretty cool operating system, has that nice little card system, pretty nice to use, but so is iOS. So they're both pretty decent operating systems. As far as processors go, the touchpad is the fastest of all the current generation tablets, with a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon processor, whereas the iPad 2 is definitely no slouch, coming in with a 1 gigahertz dual-core Apple A5 chip. As far as display goes, identical. 9.7-inch LED 1024x768 screens with 132 ppi. Alright, they're pretty much the same size. As far as memory goes, the touchpad does have a little bit more, twice as much, with a full gig of RAM, whereas the iPad 2 has 512 megs. As far as storage goes, you can get the touchpad in a 16 or 32 gigabyte variety, and the iPad 2 comes in 16, 32, or 64 gigabytes. As far as battery life goes, you get 10 hours of video playback with the iPad 2, and it's estimated you'll get 10 hours of battery life out of the touchpad as well. As far as cameras go, neither of them are really focusing on using your tablet computer as a means of taking pictures of much of anything. They both have front-facing cameras for video chatting, a 1.3 megapixel on the touchpad, and a VGA front camera on the iPad 2. The touchpad doesn't even bother to include a rear camera, and the iPad 2, well, they barely bother to include a rear camera. It's a 0.92 megapixel rear camera. It does 720p HD video, which is kind of what they've been emphasizing, but it's a pretty small sensor and doesn't have any flash, so neither of them have really all that great of cameras on them, but it's enough for video chatting, what you want to do. As far as connectivity goes, you get 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth on the touchpad, but no 4G on the iPad 2, but you still get 3G, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, and the 3G will work with either Verizon or AT&T on the iPad 2. As far as weight goes, the touchpad's a little bit heavier, coming in at 1.6 pounds, whereas the iPad 2 is 1.33 pounds. A couple miscellaneous things and sensors and all that jazz. You get GPS on both of them, as well as gyroscopes, light sensors, compasses, accelerometers. Just keep in mind that you only get GPS on the 3G version of the iPad 2. You don't get any flash on the iPad 2. Apple still is refusing to put Adobe Flash on anything, whereas you do get that on the touchpad. But with the iPad 2, you get access to 65,000 iPad apps and the cool little smart covers that they showed off yesterday, which are actually pretty nifty way to use your tablet. So what do you think? You going to be waiting for the touchpad or ordering the iPad 2? Let me know what you think is better. Love to hear from you. And as always, be sure to come check us out at gpsmaestro.com for things related to GPS, cell phones, smartphones, and, well, much more. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.